Sometimes the cruelest laughter doesn't echo from enemies. It comes from the people who pretend to know your worth. The Harper County spring auction smelled of sweat, hay, and pride, a place where men measured themselves by the weight of their cattle and the shine of their boots. But that morning, it wasn't the livestock they came to see. It was her, Martha Bell, 24, broad, hipped, soft-faced, and too gentle for a world that praised hardness. She stood beside her father's stall, dress faded by years of work, hands red from scrubbing life into someone else's comfort. Her father was selling off the last of their oxen, and with every bid, his shame grew heavier. Whispers chased her through the crowd like wind through dry grass. "She's big enough to pull the wagon herself," someone muttered. Another man laughed. "Might as well auction her next." She kept her eyes down. If she didn't look, maybe she could disappear. Then came the sheriff, Harold Clay, wide, bellied, red-faced, full of liquor and arrogance. His voice cut through the crowd like a whip. "Well, folks, if you buy the ox, we'll throw the fat one in for free." The world went silent for half a heartbeat, then burst into laughter. Martha froze. The ground beneath her might as well have opened. Her father looked away, jaw tight, too proud to defend her and too weak to stop it. Every giggle, every smirk, every cruel eye felt like a stone against her skin. She wanted to run, but her knees wouldn't move. Her chest burned not with tears, but with something darker, shame, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question if breathing is worth the sound it makes. Then, silence again, a voice from the edge of the crowd, low, calm, deliberate. 3 silver coins, the man said, heads turned. Leaning against the hitch rail stood a cowboy, dust, worn and quiet, Luke Carver. His hat shadowed his eyes, his face unreadable. He held out 3 coins between his fingers. "For her time," he said softly, "and her dignity." The sheriff barked out a laugh. "Her dignity, boy, that's been gone a long time." But Luke didn't flinch. He just met Martha's eyes, not with pity, but recognition. The kind of look that says, "I've seen pain too." Her breath caught. For the first time in her life, someone didn't look through her. He looked at her. He tossed the coins. They clinked against the sheriff's boot. The sheriff stared, smirk fading as the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Laughter didn't sound so strong anymore. Martha's father cleared his throat, stammering something about it being a joke, but Luke had already turned toward his horse. "If you've got work that needs doing," he said quietly, "ride west at sundown. I've got room on the wagon." Then he was gone. The sheriff spat on the dirt, trying to laugh it off, but the sound came hollow. The crowd scattered, shame lingering in the air like smoke after gunfire. Martha stood still, trembling. The wind lifted her hair, carrying the sound of that one voice through her mind again, steady, unshaken. For her time and her dignity. She touched the side of her face where tears wanted to fall, but didn't. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction, not anymore. As the sun dropped behind the hills, she packed her things in silence, a faded shawl, her mother's locket, and what little pride she had left. Her father didn't stop her. Maybe he didn't have the words. Maybe he didn't think she deserved to be defended. By dusk, the road west shimmered with dying light. Each step away from town felt like walking out of her own skin. Behind her, laughter still echoed faintly across the fields. But ahead, somewhere in the orange haze of the horizon, waited a man who had seen her differently, and for the first time, Martha Bell didn't walk in shame. She walked in silence, the kind that meant something was breaking, and something stronger was being born. The sun had already slipped behind the ridge when Martha reached the edge of Harper County. The fields were quiet now, the laughter gone, but its echo still bruised her heart. Every step down that dirt road felt like dragging the weight of a life that no longer fit. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay where she'd been broken. Dust rose behind her boots as wagon wheels creaked in the distance. A faint lantern glow appeared, warm, steady, familiar. It was him, Luke Carver, just as he'd said. He didn't call out, didn't ask questions. He simply slowed his horse and looked at her with a nod. You ready? She hesitated. I ain't got much, she whispered. He looked straight ahead. Sometimes that's the best way to start. She climbed into the wagon. The wooden boards were rough beneath her palms, smelling of pine and sweat. For a moment neither spoke. The air between them felt heavy not with words, but with understanding. As the wagon rolled forward, the town lights dimmed behind them until they were swallowed by night. Martha turned once, just once, to see the faint glow of the auction yard. The same place that had humiliated her now looked small and distant. She drew in a slow breath. The wind carried the scent of sage and dust freedom with a sting. Luke guided the reins with calm certainty. His movements were deliberate, patient. He didn't look at her, didn't stare like other men did. His silence wasn't cruel, it was safe. After a while, his voice broke the quiet. You ride well. Martha shook her head. I've never had reason to. He gave a slight smile, almost hidden under the shadow of his hat. Then you'll learn. Out here, reason finds you. They rode through miles of prairie grass whispering against the wheels, stars blinking awake above. Somewhere in that endless stretch of land, she began to breathe again. When the moon rose high, he stopped near a dry creek bed. The fire he built was small, but it cast a soft gold on his face. He handed her a tin cup of coffee. Careful, it's strong. She took it with both hands. The warmth stung her fingers. I'm used to strong, she said quietly. He glanced at her, not in pity, not in surprise, just quiet respect. They ate in silence, the crackle of fire filling the spaces words couldn't reach. For the first time since the sheriff's laughter, she didn't feel like prey. She felt seen. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke again. Why'd you do it? Back there. He stirred the embers with a stick. Because no man with decency watches someone get stripped of their worth. She stared into the flames, trying to understand a world where someone like him could still exist. People don't usually step in for me. Luke's voice softened. Maybe they should have. Maybe that's why I did. She didn't answer. The fire popped. Sparks drifted into the night. She thought about her father, her empty home, the way the sheriff's laughter had cut through her skin. Then she thought of this stranger, his quiet strength, his unspoken kindness. When the fire died down, he laid his blanket across the wagon bench and nodded toward it. You sleep. I'll keep watch. Her eyes widened. You don't have to. I said I would. His tone wasn't harsh, just final. She lay down, heart pounding in confusion. No man had ever guarded her peace before. The stars stretched wide above, their light cold but comforting. As she closed her eyes, the wind carried Luke's quiet humming, a tune without words, low and steady. It lulled her like a promise she didn't yet believe. In that fragile space between exhaustion and sleep, she whispered to herself, he said I was worth more than gold. And for the first time in her life, the words didn't sound like a lie. When morning came, dew glistened on the grass. Luke was already saddling the horse, his silhouette framed by the rising sun. She watched him, the stillness, the strength, the gentleness that hid behind silence. As he tightened the reins, he turned slightly toward her. Long road ahead. He said, you sure you're up for it? She stood straightening her shawl. Her voice no longer shook. I've been walking through worse my whole life. This one, at least it's leading somewhere. He nodded once. No praise, no smile, just that quiet look again. The kind that said everything words could not. And as the wagon rolled westward into the open plains, Martha Bell left behind the ashes of her old self, the laughter, the shame, the humiliation, all fading behind her like dust in the wind. Ahead lay the unknown, harsh and unforgiving. But within that silence, she carried something new, a fragile seed of worth, planted by a stranger who'd seen her differently. Sometimes silence can speak louder than comfort. And on the road west, it spoke in miles. The wagon creaked along the winding trail, its rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Dawn spilled over the plains, brushing gold across the endless horizon. Dust curled behind them like ghosts refusing to let go. Martha sat quiet beside Luke, her hands folded tight in her lap. She still felt the echo of the sheriff's laughter somewhere deep inside, but out here, it seemed smaller, weaker, like it couldn't cross this far. Luke said little. His eyes stayed fixed on the trail, hat pulled low against the morning glare. Every so often, he'd glance toward the horizon, reading the land the way other men read books. When he finally spoke, his voice came soft like the land itself was listening. "You get hungry easy." She blinked at the sudden sound. I don't need much." He nodded. "Still, a body needs strength out here, won't make it on pride." He handed her a small piece of dried bread from his saddlebag. She hesitated before taking it. The gesture was simple, but to her, it felt like grace. They rode for hours without a word. The sun climbed higher, turning the sky into a sheet of white fire. Sweat rolled down her neck. Her bonnet clung to her skin. Luke's horse snorted, its hooves kicking up dry earth. At noon, he pulled the wagon to a stop near a cluster of cottonwoods by a shallow creek. "We rest here," he said. Martha stepped down carefully, her legs aching from the ride. The grass brushed against her dress, whispering in the wind. She knelt by the water, cupping it into her hands. It was warm and tasted of dust, but it eased the tightness in her throat. Luke unhitched the horse, letting it drink. His movements were precise, not rushed, not lazy, just measured. She watched him for a long moment before asking, "You always travel alone?" He glanced up. "Most times." "No family?" He looked away. "Had one, once." The words fell heavy, final. She didn't ask more. Instead, she sat back under the trees, watching the sunlight dance through the leaves. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was honest, like two people learning how to exist without needing to fill the air. After a while, he sat near her, pulling a piece of jerky from his coat pocket.